The Whitsundays are a group of islands in tropical North Queensland protected by the Barrier Reef and providing an idyllic area for sailing yachts. I read an article in Freesail in the late 1980s, talked of people sailing out to Daydream with nothing but a credit card. I also missed out on a number of guided tours throughout the Whitsundays, something I'd wanted to do for 30 years. Took this opportunity to support mitochondrial research, an area which is really close to my heart. I did see sharks. In fact, when I was on Sid Island, I hopped off the board and walked just a few paces in waist-deep water, and 2-foot shark swam straight past my leg. Basically just said hello, didn't seem to have any fear of me whatsoever. When loading the board up with all of my gear, the board was too heavy to carry with all of my gear on it. So I had to anchor the board out past the coral bommies and then slowly tie all of my gear onto the board. This was a nervous time for me because it's quite a bit of time in waist-deep water and I know there are sharks around. I travelled on a longboard, an Exocet RSD2. I carried everything I needed with me. I found that I was able to carry enough provisions and water for 4 days. The trip was absolutely incredible. The water's so clear, the isolation just amazing. There was some wildlife and lots of life in the water, but just the whole trip was incredible. I really enjoyed studying currents and I really enjoyed the wind, and staying on the resort island was fun as well. Interestingly enough, a number of the younger people working on the desks didn't even know what a windsurfer was. Feel like a bit of a dying breed when young people don't even know what windsurfers are anymore. So maybe we need to get the windsurfers reborn. The Whitsundays experienced a Category 4 cyclone in 2017. It devastated many of the islands. Daydream Island had only just reopened. South Mole Island remains in devastation. Basically, Chute Harbour, which was the old place for most people to head off to the islands, was devastated, and as all of that was rebuilt now back around in Airlie Beach. For safety, I carried an EPIRB, I also carried a marine radio, and I also carried a mobile phone in several waterproof packages. Every day I notified a friend as to where I would be and called in regularly. I used an 8.5 metre sail with a variable downhaul. This gave me a wind range of just a few knots right up to about 25 knots. I stayed twice on Daydream Island. I also stayed on Hamilton Island, but most of the time I actually stayed on beaches where I slept essentially on the beach. My longest day was just under 60 kilometres, and throughout the whole trip I travelled just over 250 kilometres. Many of the trips were very long, and crossing Whitsunday Passage was quite a big trip. Whitsunday Passage can be very rough, given particularly if the wind is against the current. The currents in the Whitsundays are quite extraordinary, given the high levels of tides and the way the islands channel the flow. It's quite fascinating to study the currents, and it's really interesting to plan your trips based on the currents. And if you don't plan them based on the currents, quite often you're just not going to get there. I later did a similar trip in Moreton Bay, and by comparison, dropping in and getting supplies in Moreton Bay was really easy. Not so in the Whitsundays. The resort islands are really protective, and they don't want you coming onto the islands unless you're actually booked into the island for accommodation. And yet, even if you are booked on the island, they don't want you arriving on a windsurfer. So it's pretty tricky to get supplies from the islands, and you need to sort of have some tricky workarounds, which I couldn't recommend would work every time. So yeah, a big issue. And staying, for instance, on Hayman Island, unfortunately, was nearly $800 a night, and so I just couldn't do that just to get supplies for one night. Fortunately, crocodiles are quite rare out on the Whitsunday Islands. However, when you're sleeping on a beach without a tent, basically even rare is sometimes a bit of a concern. I did sleep one night on the mainland, and I know that there are crocodiles there, so I actually did sleep up on a table, which I managed to find. A little bit of peace of mind. The other danger, the box jellyfish, is not there at that time of year. However, I did wear stinger protection just in case of a box jellyfish, which is really fatal, and also because of irukandji. Now, irukandji are generally not fatal, but they make people extremely sick, and they are everywhere, and they are there in winter, so it is prudent to wear stinger protection.